Are you happy now? I'm finally relenting and taking in all the requests and comments and finally laying out Genocyber on the chopping block. Congratulate yourselves and pat yourselves on the back. I hope you choke. This was inevitable, really. Genocyber has this sort of stigma, along with MD Geist and Angel Cop, as being some of the worst ultra-violent anime to have ever blighted video store shelves. Whether or not Genocyber truly belongs in this sort of company, however, is dependent on one little factor. If you're squeamish, you will hate this series. I mean, I've reviewed plenty of gory anime before, but in those cases, the gore seemed so over the top that it's hilarious. In Genocyber, though, the gore reaches this level where it stops being funny and it starts being uncomfortable. I'll go into more detail when we get to those specific scenes, but for now, let's just leave it at this. David Cronenberg wishes he could film some of the scenes here. But is there anything to Genocyber outside of the ultraviolence? Experience is telling me no. We begin our tale in familiar territory as a scientist carefully explains to the audience why we're about to watch bodies being flayed like fish.
If one were to photograph the human body from an elevated plane, several distinct shadows would begin appearing. These are what's known as mind shadows. Within these shadows, there exists a universe far beyond the mortal plane. There is a type of energy called chi, which blows like a savage wind through that universe. The name that I have given to that wind is Vajra.
It was my birthday in the laboratory that day, so I got to choose the name of the new scientific discovery. Neener, 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 can't touch my wiener.
The Vajra will soon be manifest within a life force of an as yet unknown power, born to the continual creation and destruction of the universe. Today, the birth of that child has come. I give you Genocyber.
Okay, so we have a child who's the product of scientific experimentation meant to harness the untapped power within the human body. Where have I heard this plot before? I'm not gonna say that Genocyber completely ripped off Akira, because that's simply not the case, but one can't help but feel that it's definitely taking a page from its book. Outside of the whole child experimentation plot point, a lot of scenes down the line really feel like they were lifted from Akira's cutting room floor. They're not quite the same, but how many times do you have to see a human body split and morph into this gelatinous blob of flesh and organs and mechanical structures before you realize that we're just retreading ground? To further distance itself from Akira, our troubled and misunderstood god baby isn't just a girl, but rather two girls. A mostly cybernetic teenager whose only organic part of her left is her head, and a feral wild child who can only communicate through grunts and screaming. The wild child seems to have escaped the laboratory, and you've heard the same song and dance 1,000 times over by now. And yes, before you even ask, she does befriend a beleaguered street urchin.
I really can't explain how upset I am at the way this relationship has gone. So let me show you!
Looks like Rat has caught him at a really bad time.
It's always a bad time when it comes to his cash.
I must have been fucking crazy to let you in on this. Now get lost, punk! Fucking asswipe!
Oh, shit. There's cardboard cutout bullies meant solely for exacting karmic vengeance. And then there's these assholes. I mean, yeah, if they weren't complete shit stains, then it'd be hard to watch these characters get brutally murdered, but is a little subtlety too much to ask for? This goes beyond shallow hack writing and drives straight hard into pandering territory. It's like they pulled the script out of some bullied 13-year-old's dream journal. Who the fuck wrote this, anyway? Why am I not surprised?
Don't look so surprised. I'm your fucking backup.
Yup, Sho Aikawa makes his third appearance here on Anime Abandon. Lucky me. Alright, to clear the air once and for all, yes, Aikawa worked on some pretty highly regarded works later in his career, like Fullmetal Alchemist and Martian Successor Nadesco, but some of his earlier works border on reprehensibly bad. For some reason, Aikawa was really fixated on writing stories stuffed with the absolute worst kinds of people imaginable, from the nationalistic, jingoistic assholes in Angel Cop to Actually, why don't I not go into violence, Jack, right now? Bottom line, the guy had a hate boner with humanity, and he really whipped it out in his writing. He's toned it down considerably in his recent work, but you just have to wonder what blowjob was he not getting that made him write some of the stuff he did. And to whoever did give him said blowjob, humanity thanks you. Though your deed was done anonymously, it shall live on forever in the Phantom Beige Memorial. The wild child makes contact with the urchin in this strange little vignette that looks more like an art house offering than an anime, and then the urchin wakes up with her standing over the corpse of someone holding a shotgun. Whether it was a hobo or not is anyone's guess. Meanwhile, in Plot B, some detectives are investigating a string of brutal murders that all seem to have tenuous ties with the laboratory that created Genocyber, but Dr. Weird here shirks off their accusations.
Father, is that the collar that Elaine lost? Isn't it rather important for her to have it all the time? It helps control her Vajra, doesn't it?
Losing Elaine's really bad news. Her absence makes life difficult. Without Elaine, my research is dead in the water. You know that, don't you?
Which is exactly why I'm telling you this. Dr. Weird sends the wild child's sister after her, ordering her to bring her back so he can continue his research, meanwhile torturing her to remind her that she wouldn't be alive if it weren't for him. Classy. But it seems like she's not going to be the only one after the wild child, as a group of mercenaries are also under orders to bring her back. To where and whom, I don't know.
Have we ever let you down, huh?
Right, we gotta bring the girl back alive anyway. That's what Tokyo says. At the very least, she has to be able to breathe, even if she does get a bit fucked up.
Yes. Distracting and superfluous cursing. That's the manga UK we all know and tolerate? The wild child and the urchin look like they're becoming fast friends, but their fairy tale comes to an abrupt end as the worst person ever pops in again and harasses them. And... okay, I don't feel right showing you what happens even with Censor Kaiser blocking it. Basically, the bullies pull the urchin aside, pull his pants down, and molest him. Because they're bad guys. It's not bad enough that they're constantly beating him up. Oh no, they have to sexually assault him because otherwise we might feel bad that the mech sister shows up and crushes the bully's skull. Fuck this revenge fantasy bullshit right in the neck. Much like how you don't throw in rape into a plot without giving it the respect the subject deserves, neither do you throw in child molestation just to give the bad guy's death scenes more karmic resonance. This doesn't make me feel like the bad guys got what they deserve. It just depresses me to know that people stoop to this level of emotional pandering. This is part of the reason why I've been putting off reviewing Genocyber for so long. It's not enough that the show is mean-spirited, but it revels in the fact that it's mean-spirited. Oh, and here's the kicker. Right on the back of the box, it has the utter gall to give itself a 13 and up rating. Kinda puts the PG rating on Temple of Doom into a whole new perspective, don't it? Trying to get back on track here, the wild child manages to bamf away from her sister, tugging the urchin along with her, but their escape is foiled in the subways by the mercenaries. Still, even they are powerless against the wild child's ability to make them hallucinate badly photoshopped bugs and make them tear their own skull open. Oh, the mercenaries are also cyborgs, because why not? This is where the plot gets really hard to follow, as the wild child is somehow abducted by those detectives from earlier and bring her to a hospital, and the remaining two mercenaries make off with the urchin. Of course, this slight moment of respite is broken up by more grunts storming the hospital and killing everyone in sight. Don't feel too bad for the nurse, ladies and gentlemen. She probably crushed kittens in her spare time. Not going anywhere? Grab a Snickers. The mech sister finally confronts the wild child and tries to calmly explain to her that she has to go back. And for the first time, the wild child is able to say more than a shriek. She reveals to her the shocking news that Dr. Weird has no intention of keeping either of them safe. But you have to give the mech sister credit. She handles the news quite well.
Fine. I won't bother with questions anymore. I've had enough of running around trying to save you from getting hurt. I hate you, Elaine.
Diana, stop it!
I think it's time I put you out of my misery.
Things take yet another turn for the confusing when the two sisters duke it out. But the mercenaries pop in again, telling the wild child that if she doesn't cooperate, they're going to kill the urchin. But then the mech sister scores a cheap shot, and this causes her to glow bright gold, and this somehow returns the mech sister to her original state, and the urchin dies anyway, because... You know, I'll give Genocyber one thing. The scenes where the wild child and the urchin are playing and getting to know each other, they're actually quite well done. There's barely any scenes just with them, but they're handled in an unexpected way in that neither of them say a word to each other. It's an odd choice of direction, and since there's so few scenes with them to begin with, I'm not sure it was the right route to go. But I am surprised how effective it turned out. If they turned down the needlessly hateful characters and spent some time developing the relationship with these two, Genocyber could have been actually kind of alright. Instead...
Campbell's tomato soup, possibility. Here's a lunch that steals to show. Kids' imaginations flow at what they like. There's the box. Good applause, applause.
The cyborg mercenaries confront Dr. Weird, telling him that they're here to take back the mech sister and his sorry ass back to their employers. Apparently, Dr. Weird has gone rogue and his financiers want him and his experiments under their control.
Why did you have to kill Elaine? Why did you interfere? Look what's happened. You've ruined me. You've ruined everything. Why, Diana? Why couldn't you just do as you were told? Why didn't you listen to me?
Well, maybe if you didn't spend your time torturing her to make her learn complacency...
I saved your worthless life. All these years I protected you, and still you won't listen to me.
Then she would have done what you asked. In a very trippy scene that kind of reminds me of the Eclipse episodes of Berserk, the mech sister is confronted with visions of the wild child, who finally gives up trying the diplomatic route and just fucking overtakes her body. And this somehow causes the mech sister's still very much incomplete body to grow arms and legs and turn into Genocyber. 35 minutes into a 45-minute OVA, and we finally get to see the title character of the show. The anticipation would have been too much to bear if I was actually anticipating it. With the God Baby to end all God Babies going on a tear, the cyborg mercenaries go a little trigger-happy and go for the gusto, transforming into disturbing half-machine, half-alien-looking monstrosities. Of course, God Baby knows no equal and just tears through these posers like tissue paper. Okay, gotta admit, that was pretty awesome. I just wish that I didn't have to go through child molestation to get to it. The last remaining mercenary doesn't last much longer as Godbaby pile drives him through a fucking jetliner, which proves an odd segue to the final scene where the wild child confronts the spirit of the urchin, who says his final goodbye before her grief takes a hold and she destroys everything around her. Thanks for that one, Genocyber. Without that title card, I would have never guessed that the city was completely destroyed by that catastrophic explosion. You're doing the Lord's work there, Genocyber. I think the one thing I'm going to take away from Genocyber is the thought of what could have been. Sure, the setup has been done to death, but there is some semblance that what they're trying to do well, which is way more than I could say for half of the schlock that finds its way on here. It's just that the show just keeps being sidetracked by hateful characters and scenes. What could have been a fairly serviceable story about science creating monsters and man's inhumanity to man is instead a draining foray into nihilism. But the ride doesn't end here. We still have 4 more parts to cover, so stay tuned for part 2 of 3. Till next time.